Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm storing my dahlias and I thought I'd show you how. And if you're new to the channel, you're very welcome. Please do press subscribe and the bell icon will tell you when we've got more clips coming up. And if any of the tips and tricks are useful along the way, you can always buy me a coffee, or better still, join my club. Links to coffee buying and club membership are in the blurb to all my clips. Right, on we go. So last week I lifted all my dahlias, and there are about 90 tubers here. And these are the ones I'm keeping. They're all first year growth, some bigger than others, but all pretty good. So this is what I'm going to keep, about 90. I may order a few more. And these are the spares, which we're saving for the plant sale. So I'll just pop them up at plant sale time and a month or so before and grow them on. So there'll be some nice dahlias for the plant sale. So the first thing I need is an old baking tray. And we have a selection of these, which we keep for just this purpose. They're handy because, like any bale arm tray, they have these side flips, which mean that I can stack them easily. And so I can stack my dahlias so that they don't take up too much space. Now, this is a variety called Bracken Ballerina, which I know because it says on the label, Brack Ball. And most people, when they lift their dahlias, there are lots and lots of different ways of doing this. So a lot of people wash the earth off their dahlias. I don't. What I find is I shake off the worst of the earth, but I find that leaving a little bit of earth on the dahlias acts as an absorber for moisture. The earth over the winter pulls away from the dahlia tubers, and any moisture in the air seems to go into the earth. It's easier for it to get into the earth than it is into the tuber. So the earth acts as a very good moisture gatherer from the dahlias. So that's my number one thing about why I don't wash them. I see people washing their dahlias. It seems to me, I'm not, for number one, unless you really, really dry them out after that, that's going to make a lot of damp. Number two, you have to keep them dry. You don't want them to be lying around in the damp because they rot really easily, especially if they're not cold enough. And we don't have especially cold winters anymore. So for me, washing off a tuber is counterintuitive. But also remember what each of us are going to do with our tubers. I have kept only the best few per variety, and I intend to cover these in a bit of compost in the spring, sprout them, and my next year's stock will be all from the cuttings I take from the sprouted tubers. This won't be planted in the ground again. I will take cuttings, and that's what I will plant because I'm trying to keep disease and virus out of my dahlia patch. It works very nicely for me. There are lots of other ways. You can leave your dahlias in the ground every winter if you want. By all means, you don't have to copy what other people do. If you leave them in the ground, cover them with a lot of mulch and make sure the mulch doesn't wash off in the winter. You can wash them, of course you can wash them, but it seems to me to be a lot of water, plus you're making, for me it seems that you're making more work for yourself. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to leave quite a lot of earth on here, but I am going to have a nice indelible felt pen, and I'm going to, now that the tubers are drier, they've had a week, nearly a week, sitting in my studio, drying off, I can just dry off a bit of tuber here, look, by rubbing off with my finger, very simple process. And then I'm going to write code, so I will understand. It doesn't matter if you don't understand what I write, it matters that I understand it. So onto my tuber, I'm writing Brack Ball, which to me means Bracken Ballerina. I have only one dahlia, which begins with two B's in a row, So even if it's all gone by the end of the winter and all I can see is BB, I know it's a bracken ballerina. I then take off the craft label, and because I don't want my tubers to take up too much space, I'm going to chop off most of this stalk. Feels very over-engineering the situation, but I'll show you. Ordinary snips are not strong enough for this job. Right, can you see? Yes, you can. There we are. And I'm taking it not down to the nub, but close enough. And by doing that, I've done two things. One, I've saved myself space. But two, this is the old stalk, and you can see it's hollow. Where I've cut down to, it is no longer hollow. So if there is any damp, it can't get in through the hollow middle. And I then turn it upside down because I don't want it to try and shoot. So I'm putting the crown of the dahlia in the dark by putting it upside down. And I put it in my tray. Make it so you can see what I'm doing. There we are. And that's the beginning of my stored dahlias. I'll show you when I've done a bit more, because you don't want to watch the whole thing. It's a little dull and repetitive and takes a very calm hour or so. I might listen to a podcast. Now, if you want, at this stage, you might find that they split simply. They're literally coming apart. So here is a selection of stalks. And look, this one is loose. And if I jiggle it around, I will find that slowly, don't be too rough with it, but you will find that it comes apart and you have there. And that's a nice little plant for next year. So I could split it and have that as a plant. That would be fine. I'm not going to go through all my dahlias and do that at this stage because I like growing from cuttings. But that would make a nice plant for next year. So you can do that. Or you can wait to do that in the spring. It's up to you. You know, lots of choices. There are many ways of doing this. As with all things horticultural, there is not absolutely one firm way. There are lots of ways to achieve the same objective. You can choose which way suits you. So there's the first tray done. When they're finished, they will go on these trestles. So there's plenty of air going around them. There are about 20 in there. Carolina Wagamans is one of the ones that always comes up quite small, but I don't mind. Comes back, takes cuttings nicely. What you want is your tubers to feel nice and firm, like a firm potato. And hopefully over winter, they'll stay feeling like a firm potato. And for that reason, you want to keep them cool, dry, not frozen, not too warm, as though you're keeping a potato. And then they'll be fine. You know, I do have a full dahlia workshop on the 15th of November, so do book a place there and we go through the whole process of everything from lifting, storing, propagating, all the whys and wherefores, absolutely everything. Your dahlia, annual dahlia calendar. I worked out the other day, I do 5 full days of dahlia action only in a year, but I'm very, very strategic about it. So come on my dahlia workshop and I'll tell you what those 5 days are and also help you really plan to have amazing dahlias. I'm not brilliant at everything, but I'm quite good at growing dahlias. So this workshop should help. And there they are, all piled up. The ones for keeping on the left, plant sale in less fancy pants arrangements on the right. And they are in a relatively dark space, north facing, and they can stay here all winter. It's cool in here, and so they will just dry off slowly upside down and spend the winter in here. And now I have to do a great big clear up. Easily the messiest job of the year is lifting the dahlias. Now I know that there are people out there saying, but surely you must leave the dahlias to freeze. No, you don't have to leave the dahlias to freeze. Lots of people grow dahlias in places which never freeze. So what do? They lift the dahlias when they've had enough to split them. What our challenge is here in zone 8 in the southwest of England is damp. And it is important to keep them cool enough. So if you live somewhere warmer, you might need to put them in an actual cooler for the winter to keep them cool enough to stop them sprouting. They don't need to be very warm to start sprouting. Here we should be all right in a cool north-facing space. So I don't have a cooler. So that's where they're going to stay. It's quite dark. They've been turned upside down so that if they try and shoot, they're shooting into the dark. I may lose a couple. I hope not. I think I'm more likely to lose them to mice who love to eat dahlia tubers because they are, of course, edible. Close cousin of the potato. So you must do what you think is right for you. Feel free to leave them in the ground. If you leave them in the ground, you must mulch them well, and next year you'll find you've got very, very big tubers, which you may really want to split. You can take basil cuttings from tubers sprouting in the ground if you like. There are loads and loads of different ways of doing this. This is how we do it, and I think it's really, really important with any kind of horticultural business or any kind of business chat that one takes into account all the different ways that one can do something, and then one chooses a way that suits one. Thanks very much for visiting, and I'll see you very soon.